on, everyone? Welcome back to Canescast. I'm Phil Van Pelt.
Hey guys, welcome back. Garrett Halsey back with you.
Excited to be with you guys. We're talking Canes football, right? It's the off season. Obviously, shows are going to be a little fleeting. We had a not quite the schedule we wanted to maintain during the regular season. That's going to start changing, but until that time, we're probably going to be a little scattered throughout because hey, it's the off season. We only have so much to talk about as far as recruiting and transfers, but we do have a lot to talk about right now because things have been heating up. We're going to get rolling with Canes recruiting. That's how we're going to jumpstart it and what we think this looks like coming up for next year with the transfers, the recruiting, the class we've locked down, big time topics like, McLean and his back and forth, what we're looking at there. So obviously that's been decided, thankfully. But Garrett, talk to me about what you feel so far. How does this class look to you? I'm pretty pumped about what we've locked down so far. So what do you think?
Well, yeah, and like Phil said, given how the season ended up and some of our personal things, we didn't get our episodes out every week. So we hope to bring good content to you guys each and every time we bring out an episode. So talk a little bit about closing out the season and like Phil was saying, how recruiting's looking, shaping up, how we're going to build the team for going forward for 2023 and 24 season. So the recruiting class was
Crazy,
great.
we're already here.
You got to give Mario Cristobal a lot of credit for having kind of an abysmal season. He did do a good job recruiting this year. Let's take the wins where we can get a few wins because other than that, it was a little tough. So
The
the
season was
offensive
not full of
line,
wins. The off season has been good.
I don't know how we weren't 12-0. What the hell happened here?
Yeah,
So
it seems like a long ways
first
away
off,
from that. Yeah,
first off, offensive line, he killed it in offensive line. That's his expertise. That's really where we needed to get a lot better over the last few years. We could get a lot of talented kids, but offensive line, I really feel like every time we were trying to battle for one of these big number one or number two tackles in the country, we were losing it to Clemson, Alabama. They were going everywhere, but coming down to Miami. To start with, obviously the number one tackle in the nation, Francis Mauigoa. I think the biggest thing with the recruiting class is the IMG kids. If you go look back, this academy came out of, I kind of say nowhere. I mean, it was Northwestern, it was Miami Central for a lot of the mid 2000s into the 2010s. I didn't hear a lot about IMG, but they came up. It's 7-8 years ago now. You go look at the guys that have good teams; they're pulling a lot of these kids from IMG. So let's take that kid. Let's Jaden Wayne, Riley
pancake,
Williams.
pancake, Samson, Akunaloa or whatever. I'm totally dropping his name. Sorry about that. I don't have it right in front of me right now, but I know Pancake, right? He's the number 3 tackle recruit or rated tackle in the class and for his position. So we have number 1 and number 3. That's pretty big. Last time we pulled those were Brevin Jordan and um
Will Mallory.
Will Mallory. Why was I dropping his name? Sorry, guys. Didn't sleep super well last night, I guess. I don't know what's going on with my brain right now. But yeah, number 1 and number 3 tight end recruits, and they ended up being pretty good players for us for a long time. And obviously, Jordan is making his way along with the Texans, NFL career. But I mean, hey, those are big time gets. The line is where it's games are won and lost. So,
And 100%. The other kid whose name's really hard to say, I'll butcher it, is Collins Achimapong. So let's say DNs. They got 2 high quality, big physical kid, big frames, can take on some weight. That are going to
Ruben
be
Bain.
explosive kids. Ruben Bain is a shorter, more compact kid, but explosive, and he's made tons of plays in a very good high school program there in Miami Central. So let's say Mario
The
Cristobal
sack
gets an
numbers are
A.
crazy.
He gets an A in recruiting. The coach, all that from last season's not the question here, but he did a great job recruiting and going through some adversity. We've had, and we'll get into it. There was 2 really big recruits that kind of played on us a little bit, a quarterback and a cornerback there. But outside of that, let's just say I can't complain. You go down the list and the kids that we did get, I can't say that there's a position that a receiver, maybe a bigger receiver is the one thing I'd say maybe we left unturned this recruiting cycle, but offensive linemen were great. They got interior, exterior, all over. I think we nailed that. I think we really got 5 guys that could play, hopefully, if they develop, right? Defensive line, they did great. Defensive tackle, maybe not maybe not a big guy. That was maybe another one we could have done. Hopefully another number here, but the linebackers I like. They're all big. They seem, if they're as athletic as most of these kids are, then they should be fine. But even the corners that we did get, uh, you watch that they go play in the Under Armour game, the Army All American game, those two premier games. Going back in my fanhood, when I've watched those two games every offseason, those were the biggest markers and the barometers of kids that would go out and play really well and end up in the league. You go Deshaun Jackson, Adrian Peterson, some of these guys, when they go out in these games and they are amongst their peers that are all 4 or 5 star recruits, and they go out and they play well in those
The
games.
best high school offer.
It seemed like these guys were all superstars, so we had some guys like that here recently that didn't pan out for us quite as much. Deontay Mullins was one I want to, just bring up because that kid made some big plays. That one-handed touchdown was, you just were like, oh, this is finally, we're going to get this kid in our program and he's going to do big things. Jeff Thomas, I was super excited, and I don't think Jeff Thomas didn't have a decent enough career, but you get guys that show flashes in these games, and they end up being really good players. So when you have Mark Fletcher and Nick, I'm gonna screw his name up, Ray Joseph, those kids played really well in the Under Armour All-American game. They had long touchdowns, big plays. Those are the guys I'm really excited to join the guys in the trenches. When you guys, get guys that are making plays in those types of settings, I'm excited for those guys to come on in for sure.
We've talked about that too. Jeff Thomas is one of those guys that it just haunts you. You look back and it's just like, my goodness, it was just a guy who felt like there was so much potential and so much there that we just never got to see. As far as, on the team too, you talk about, impact recruits. I think there's going to be potential for more receivers and things to come on via the transfer portal. But there's also in-house development that I think Cristobal's probably leaning on a lot. There's talent there. Keeping a guy like Restrepo healthy all season would have been huge for our offense. I'm still a very firm believer that had Restrepo not been hurt in the Texas A&M game, that alone would have won us that game because his rapport with Van Dyke is so big. Their guys are roommates, so their chemistry's there. They're great friends. I believe that, seeing as many balls as we dropped, the safety blanket that he is for Van Dyke is huge. And that would have, I think, allowed us to get in the end zone at least once, which honestly would have won us that game. Everything swung on that muffed punt, as we've talked about multiple times. But there's a lot of things I'm excited for. The transfer portal, to me, has always been something that is a way to supplement your, what you do in recruiting. And for us, we've had big name pieces from the transfer portal the last, handful of years. Diaz did a good job at that, but it wasn't the team. You had pieces that would go out, get drafted high, be great players, but they weren't, obviously Jalen Phillips, he's a Cane, right? But he came over from the transfer portal. I love him because, he's balling for my Dolphins, but he was transfer portal. We need these guys, you need those that are Canes through and through. These guys come through and they represent, and they go out and they become big time players in the league. But you also got to have that recruiting base to develop those guys, because that depth is where we've fallen short for a long time. Losing Darrell Jackson to, that who shall remain nameless, the school we hate the most up there in Tallahassee, Trailerhassee, however you pronounce it. I'm kidding. It's Tallahassee. I won't dog the town too much, but these guys, that's a loss because he's a big body in the middle. Leonard Taylor, he still got this, Jackson doesn't touch what Taylor presents as far as talent on the line. I know you believe he should be playing outside, but then when you look at, that's a piece that we need to help add, get another guy in there in the trenches. But what we did in recruiting on the offensive line is totally buffered by adding a guy like Javion Campbell or Cohen, excuse me.
Javier Cohen.
From Alabama. I mean, you're talking about a starter at the premier football program in college football who hasn't given up a sack in his entire career. Big dude. He's got immediate eligibility, which all these guys do now, but I think he's got another at least 2 years left. Francisco Magoa coming over. His brother now, they're teaming up in Miami from Washington State. So, I mean, that's a big time add in the linebacking, room, which for me, we've lacked. From what you see, he's a splash play guy, and we've lacked impact plays from the linebacker position for a while. Both the Canes and my Dolphins in Miami football, we need linebacking play. So there's a lot of things we did in the transfer portal to me that I'm super excited about. Devontae Brown coming over from UCF and Matt Lee coming over from UCF. He was the number one rated center in the transfer portal, and he chose Miami. So there's guys we lost. Devontae Williams going to what was it, Maryland. Um, Obviously we lost, Jordan Miller, and on the D line, he went to SMU. Romello Brinson went to SMU. The guys are chasing after Lashley. Obviously, I don't know why. Those guys might just be buddies. He's not playing on the offensive side of the ball, to know Lashley in Miller's case. But, you know, I can't I can't not be excited. The whole point of all this for what Cristobal's done. So honestly, for me, I think everybody came into this with unrealistic expectations about what last year was supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
this guy right here. This
you were.
guy
I
right
was a
here.
little more bullish as far as saying 9 to 10 wins. We were both wrong. The talent we thought was there, but what this ended up being was a complete clean house rebuild. I mean, gutting it, right? Getting guys out that do not want to be there. That was his goal. That was what he came in to do. Yes, you want to build, but for me, this is when it gets exciting. You rip the Band-Aid off. Last year is done and over with, but now we get to see real progress, right? We know Cristobal's a good coach. He's won, two Pac-12 titles. So we know that he can do it. He can go big, win big games. He took his team to Ohio State and beat them in their backyard when he was at Oregon. We know this guy can go win big games. I'm not ready to crucify. I'm not ready to judge him and say this year, after what I saw, okay, even this coming year, there might even be, now it needs to be better. You cannot win 5 games. You need to be bowl eligible, and you need to take steps in the right direction. But I really believe that it's about getting his guys in there and guys that bleed and are committed to the U. And that to me is what's exciting, because he's trying to do that. And yes, patience, right? Everybody preaches patience. We got to be patient. We've been patient for how long until we've seen the last dominant Canes teams? We want it back. The expectation is championship. That's when we know the U is back, right? That's what we all want. That's why we bleed it. But getting guys out of there that don't want to be there, getting guys back from injury, development, transfers, recruiting, stuff is headed in the right direction. And I'm excited. And it finally has the feel of a team that can be built in a way that has sustainable success and not a one-off 2017 kind of success where we were pumped about it, but it was surface level. Guys stay healthy, you go in, you do, and we did lose some big guys. We lost some guys like Malik Young to injury that year. But you get this to a point where you can build it and it can stay sustainable and good for a long time, a la Georgia, a la Alabama, things like that. Even LSU struggled with that. LSU had this team built up to this moment, and then look, they've kind of fallen off a little bit. I mean, they had a good season this year, but that it's not a year in, a year out competing for championship things. Clemson built that to that point. Obviously, we're not sure if they're there now. Ohio State, Michigan's getting to that point. That's where we want to be. And on that, guys like, and this is the pivot point here, guys like that want to be in Miami, that's who we want, right? The Kamani McLean thing, I mentioned that at the beginning. That's why I'm happy he chose, if he's going to flip-flop, even though he was going to Miami, was in his grandfather's honor and his grandfather's wish, and he wanted to do that. Okay, cool. You know what? He's gone. That commitment, it's done. He flipped him. Cool. It's over. If you don't want to be at Miami, I'm part of that crew too right now, where yes, you got to have guys. There's always going to be, especially with the NIL, there's going to be flip-flop back and forth. But on some level, you really got to be where you're going. You really got to want to be where you're going. And if there's doubt, leave. Jaden Rashada, I shared that with you this morning. He's getting crystal balled right back to Miami. At this point, I don't know that I want him. He flipped back and forth. He's playing for the rival there in Florida too. At this point, they might take him still. I'm not that sure that I want him, to be perfectly honest with you. How much are you going to put in for this program, right? That's my point.
So I'm going to go ahead and let's look at two sides of this coin, because I think recruiting is important. And I think he's done a good job in the recruiting class. But let's say a little let's give this side of caution, right? Look at Texas A&M, had the number one recruiting class, all the talent they put in, and how pissed off Alabama was that they bought all their kids, but they weren't a good team this year, right? So just because you have the best recruiting class in the nation does not directly translate to you're going to have a successful season the very next year, right? In a lot of cases, I think if you're not careful and you don't do it right, it can be a step back, because there was some stuff that went down in that on that team that was, you don't want any part of that stuff. So again, it's important. Let's not say you can't just go out and get a team without being good recruiters. Okay, Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, they've done the correct way by building these classes and stacking them year in and year out. But there is no magic pill. You can't just go from a crappy team. One class is going to turn your team all around, and then all of a sudden you're going to the playoffs, right? That's what I want to also kind of keep people out there in mind. This is a different time in college football. Like you're saying, just because they're the number one player or number one position player does not mean that they're the best player for this team. I think that Miami has struggled so severely is not realizing that we're a benchmarker when we go play other teams. And I think we fail to realize that getting prepped or whatever it is, going into these games, we are missing big time that we got to be better than everyone else times 20%. Because guys are coming in playing like they're playing Ed Reed or they're playing against Andre Johnson. They're not playing the guys right now because they're beating us, right? Let's just call it what it is. What these teams seem to come in and do is they're playing the Miami teams of the past, that they're putting themselves on the map by having good games. North Carolina has been our freaking Achilles heel because I honestly think they get it off. They get off coming in and making us look bad. We have talent. You go back to these recruiting classes, we've never been outside the top 20. Okay? I'm just going through TCU's classes. I guarantee you, I did not see one class. They have talented kids going there. Let's not get twisted either. But they don't have as many kids as we've had in the last 4 years. You go by all the recruiting rankings and all that, we have the more talented team. That's what we got so wrong last year. It's not that we don't have guys that aren't good football players. We're not putting it together properly on the development side. So there's another conversation. I want to say TCU just showed everybody you don't have to be the number one recruiting team in the nation to go out and play in the national championship game. They didn't win the game, but they played good football, right? If you have a good team, a good coach.
They play good football up until that point, yes. But that to me feels like did they take a year like when Rick, we had a solid, we had a good coach, we had a good setup there in 2017, we got to the Orange Bowl. Did they take that kind of a year and take it a step further and get to the national championship game? I said they used up all their luck.
What would you give to have one playoff win under your belt in this decade? That's what I'm saying.
No, you're right.
TCU shows people that you can go out and beat Michigan, who's by all accounts and paper should have beat TCU. What should wipe them off the floor? TCU lost their championship game.
They should have because it would have been a better game. It would have been a better game had Michigan got it.
The point is,
I mean, it's just they played their best game.
The point is, it can be done both ways. I'm not saying not one way is the other. Only way to do it. It can be done both ways. You can have less talented team, but with good coaching and good schemes, and things will bring these guys up, right? And I'm not saying they didn't have a little luck, getting the 4th seed, they maybe should have not have been in. But when they got in, they played and won, beat a good team. We haven't even beat a good team lately. Okay, so I want to start there. We need to go back in and beat good teams and be a good team, right? And there's ways to do it. You can scheme, you can get good kids. But it's not just a point. It's just not the magic marker. You're not just going to flip the switch and be a good team by recruiting only. It's both. So that's what I want to say is go back and look. There's other teams that kick our butt every year. They're not as good recruiting classes as we do. So why is that? That's what I'm more concerned about in the overall scheme of things. But it's important to recruit well also.
You have to have that. I mean, absolutely. But you can't – they're not – okay, mutually exclusive, whatever. You cannot have a team that recruiting is a part of that. So I'm talking about a piece of the puzzle that needs to be there. Good recruiting needs to be there. And you're right, development needs to be there, but you have to have those guys. Stars don't matter. If a guy has heart, right, he's going to come in, he's going to play, he's going to show, he's going to take that next step. I understand that mentality. I do. But there's a reason that Alabama and Georgia and these schools aren't made up of 1 and 2 star guys. Yes, if they were, would they, do they have great development and coaching and stuff there? They do, absolutely. Would they be a solid squad if all they got was 1 and 2 star guys? Yes, because coaching and stuff matters, but they are where they are because of the recruits that they have, taking those steps. Development's there. I do trust Cristobal to make those to have that development happen on the offensive line. And he knows what it's like to win at Miami and what it takes, and he wants to get that back. Now, can he rationalize that or buffer that with how the times have changed compared to when he won at Miami? We'll see, and we hope that happens, and that can grow.
Agreed. That's the biggest question.
But
that's the biggest question.
but with the offensive line, the thing is we're always going to get skill guys at Miami. And sometimes you look at it and laugh and say, well, my God, last year seems like the receivers couldn't catch a cold. But if you can protect a guy like Van Dyke, who I know we have differing opinions on, if you can protect a guy like Van Dyke or Brown, Ja'Cory Brown, if he's the guy who I believe should get a shot, that's exactly why Jake Garcia bounced, because it's Van Dyke coming back next year and Ja'Cory Brown, and then recruits. Where does he fit into that? He doesn't. Jake Garcia probably thought this was going to take, he fell into it like we all did. We thought we were going to take that step. We're going to be in a good position where we're going to be building and nailing these recruiting classes, but we're going to have a solid year this year. And Van Dyke, by all accounts, is going to leave and get drafted in the first round because of his arm talent. That's what we all thought was going to happen, but it didn't happen. Team was injured. 18 to 22 starters were injured at various points of the season. That was a problem, and it kept Van Dyke from taking that next step. But we know the offense that Gaddis wants to build, it's going to be that smash mouth, Big Ten style run game, and have a quarterback that can put the ball where it needs to go and score points, right? That's obviously the goal of it all. So I believe that's going to happen. I trust him to build that offensive line. And right now you're looking at it and saying basically one freshman's going to have to start. One of these two freshmen tackle, best of 2 5-stars, number 1 and 3 at their positions, going to have to start. The rest, you're going to have experienced guys. Javion Cohen, you're going to have Matt Lee, you're going to have guys coming back, Zion, you're going to have all these guys on the offensive line. You should have a good offensive line. As long as we stay healthy, that run game, that passing game should be there.
Again,
can the rest of it take those steps? Can the defense take those steps? We know Leonard Taylor's a baller, right? We know he's going to get his on the defensive line. Can the rest of the defense take those steps? Flag, obviously Kinchins. I didn't even talk about how good he is. He was already projected as a preseason All-American like he was last year, right? There's a reason. Those things are big. Can the rest of the team take those steps? I believe that they can, because I believe that the coaching staff is in the right spot. Now, again, Gaddis is the biggest question mark. You're not a fan. A lot of people aren't, but do we buffer this with a rebuilding? Do we say we're rebuilding? We're weeding out guys that don't want to be there. It seemed like a lot of guys kind of quit on the team last year. You had a lot of injuries on top of that. Now you have guys coming back, commitment, understanding what the program is and what they're playing for, transfers and recruits. Does that make a difference to you? Does that help the offense take a different step in the right direction? And we kind of say, you know what, we're not going to look at year one. Look at what happens when you stick with a coach and the thing it can build over time. We've seen that. So where do you stand on that?
Yeah.
Do you think the offense will take a step?
Ooh, man, I want to say yes.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that they did do a good job of putting the right steps. Let's put offensive line as the highest priority. Let's put defensive line as the next highest priority. I think they put their eggs in the right baskets this year. I do believe so. So that's positive. I'm going to try better of not being such a homer going forward and having my rosy Canes colored glasses on so much. So understanding why we are in these predicaments is a lot of what my hope is understanding this game, right? It's a beautiful game. And like you said, it's important to have guys that come here that want to play and put that U on, and it means something to them. We've talked about it during the games in the season, bro. I am so tired of watching the other team come down here and throw that U down. Like, it is the most absurd. It's
gotta hurt, dude. That's gotta piss people off.
And the fact that these players on the team that it's happening to don't seem to really get that spark and that disdain is part of what's got to change. So if these guys coming in are those types of players that are not going to allow that kind of stuff to go on anymore, then I think we are in good shape.
Dude, you cannot, that has to make you mad. Honestly, that has to get you to a point where you say, I don't mind if I'm a player here getting ejected or something happening, because you got to send a message, because I'm not advocating for fighting or anything like that, but it's got to piss you off. It's got to light a fire. But these guys have gone out for too many years and just said going through the motions. And the reason they do that, same thing with horns down, right? For Texas, Oklahoma does that a lot. It's because it is a symbol.
It's a headline grabber. It's a get attention. It's it's
one of the most known things. It's a brand. It's a brand. And it's one of the most known brand in sports, period. You do this, everybody knows what it is. And
agreed.
They come in and they wanted, and you're right, they view it like, because of that, we're playing this brand. We want to play our best. We get everybody's best shot, whether it's Middle Tennessee or whether it's North Carolina, who we've been very right on the fence with the last 2 seasons and haven't beaten them for whatever reason. But whether it's them or whether it's even if you're playing like Alabama, like it doesn't matter, right? Even they're going to view it as the U. Like people when they play Alabama, you're playing Alabama. And I'm not saying we're anywhere close to that level right now, but it's just the brand of who you're playing, when you're playing, where you're playing. And it's just that like we want to make sure that we're part of the reason they never come back. It's that feeling of we're going to keep them down. We throw that down. That's got to piss them off. That's got to make them angry. And yeah, until you have guys that are out there, that to me is remember Terrell Owens running out there on the star and he got drilled. Like you gotta
Yeah, yeah.
that can't fly. You can't have that. And the stupid fans are up there doing that too at away games. And that stuff has to be whenever I see that, my ultimate goal is just I hope that fan has to choke on that and they lose the Canes pull through. It happens in basketball games, baseball games, football, doesn't matter. That's what people love to do. You got to shut people up and they can't do it anymore. And on that, our basketball team has done a pretty good job of that. Yesterday was standing, obviously losing a close one at Duke. They're going to be a top seed going into this tourney. They have a great team. Larinaga's built this up into something that's consistently been a threat. Elite Eight appearance last year as a 10 seed, multiple Sweet 16s, has won an ACC tournament and regular season championship, winning what is arguably year in year out the toughest college basketball conference. How can we see that? But our football team has not been able to figure it out. I trust Cristobal to get us to that point.
That's the most mind-boggling thing, man. How we've had more success in basketball than we have in the football in the ACC, and basketball in the ACC is treacherous. This is dang near a pro league to get through. So
year in and year out, there's up and down years.
I can't explain it. It doesn't make sense. But so I want to bring in a quip that I've had in my mind. A good friend of mine who's a Florida Gators fan, bro, said this years ago, and this still resonates with me. Miami used to beat people before they even played the game, before the first snap. We used to walk in and kind of already had that team beat, right?
It's mental. We're in people's minds, dude.
That's the thing we are not doing anymore. We are not intimidating anybody. We have no status at this point that strikes fear in the heart of the team coming in to play us, and that's the thing that I feel has got to change sooner than later.
This still motivates them to come in and play hard. But our guys,
and like,
yeah, the intimidation.
I like what you said. It's a brand. These teams are coming in to play the brand rather than the team on the field, and that's why I think we don't have an edge on that. We don't win 58 games in a row and have that streak that still stands, thank God. If we didn't have those teams beat before they even showed up on the field, right?
Well, smoke, everything.
We won 2 games at home this last year. That's one of the biggest things, bro. We got to stop having all these teams come into our house and disrespect and trounce all over us. And, we got to have some pride in Hard Rock. Miami, I don't give a crap, bro. They're in our freaking area. Put on for that field, bro. Like, put some pride in where you're playing, bro. That's the thing to me that's the most disappointing thing is that we have no pride in protecting our house, one. So how are we ever going to have, anybody thinking twice before we go into their house, right? They come in our house with confidence. So.
Here's the thing with that, dude. I mean, it's my hometown. I know people listen to this. People have varying opinions about fan support in Miami. The Heat have had X amount of sellouts. I think they're the 4th longest continuous sellout in the NBA. They are consistently consistent. The Heat have struggled this year with injuries. Obviously, I'm a diehard Miami fan across the board, right? Heat, Marlins, Panthers, Dolphins, Canes, Inter Miami soccer now, right? So for me, it's winning matters, but there's very few places there's as much to do as there is in South Florida. Dolphin games, successful this year, they're selling out. There's a ton of people. The atmosphere is rocking. You saw 2017, that Virginia Tech game in primetime. They were talking about how loud it is. Then fast forward to the game you went to, Notre Dame. Then next week, that was rocking, one of the loudest stadiums. We heard guys that are playing all over the Big Ten, right? At Notre Dame, they're playing in Big Ten stadium since the loudest place they've ever heard. Kirk Herbstreit saying that this stadium does get rocking. It does get there. The fan support is there. But honestly, fans get tired of the same thing year in and year out.
That's the thing that Tyler Van Dyke did terribly last year. He got into this whole thing about the fans and how it's better to go in other teams and it's a better atmosphere. You know what, buddy? Play good football. Throw touchdowns. We'll be there. Come in there, be the best player on the field. People will come in there. You're saying it. People will come in and watch you. That's your bad. That's not the fans' bad. That's your bad. He needs to, if Tyler Van Dyke's going to be the guy, that's the thing I think he needs to change the most. He needs to be the leader that's Okay, you want fans to come in and give you good atmosphere. Do something about it, bruh. Don't go in there and throw two interceptions before you even get off the bus against Middle Tennessee State at home. That's the thing that I think Miami's got to change. And again, without my rosy-colored glasses, that's when I see that first. When I see that starting to develop, I'll start getting, a whole lot more excited about where we are going. And I hope that's our coaching staff we have now that's going to bring that to us. I do. I hope we don't have to go through this crap every 2 years, 3 years. It's not how you build good teams.
It's
We're
not.
not going to get
You
back
need
there doing it in
consistency.
a restart every year. We need
You need
consistency. We need
consistency.
good coaching.
You need consistency in coaching, dude. But I'm telling you, the fan support is there. The passion is there. Winning is a part of it. But that's the thing. In a lot of these places, people love to use this as like a badge of honor to say, oh, look, Nebraska sucks. And they always have fans there and people are there and everything. It's yes,
What
that
else you got to
matters.
do in Lincoln, bro?
But that's
They
the
sell
point.
out every stadium, hell or high water, because that's it. That's all they can do on Saturday,
But
right?
why
We've
would
talked
I
about that.
go? Why would I go? A lot of
Miami,
people have this
Miami
mindset of I
has.
can watch it from a bar. I can be at the beach watching this game happen. And that's what a lot of people believe. Yes, I would be there every game if I could. I know you would do the same. And I'm same thing with the Heat, the Dolphins, the Marlins, everything. Panthers, absolutely. But there's a lot to do in these games. When you're successful, they'll show up. And that's the thing, is that's part of it, right? It is a two-way street, is when the team has success anywhere across any sport, fan support goes up. The Miami diehards have been there. We've seen these teams sell out from the 70s, 80s, 90s. And I'm not just talking about the Kings, I'm talking about the Dolphins. I'm talking, you get into the Marlins. We've seen these teams support. The Marlins are a whole other story about back and forth with selling the team and, win a World Series and ship the players out. But fan support is there. I know tons and tons. And you go on these fan pages and everything else. And I'm there at games. There's thousands and thousands of diehard fans for every one of these teams. And the Heat show it because the Heat are consistently consistent. And they're one of those top run franchises every year in and year out in basketball. And they reap the rewards, and there they are, and competing for championships, and that matters. And that's the thing, is has Miami switched to a basketball town from a football town? At its core, it's always a football town. The Dolphins and the Canes started things, and that's where it's going to stay. But when the basketball teams, both the Heat and the Canes, have so much success, the passion's there for them as well. So it needs to be all encompassing. It's a two-way street, but coming out and showing first and foremost, like you don't care about the brand that you're wearing, that's been a problem. And that's how you help
100%.
switch that when you talk about that with Van Dyke. I will say we're running low on what the time we allow ourselves here. So we're going to wrap this up. I know I had the last word here with that. If you have anything else you want to add to that, Garrett, before we close out, I'll let you close it. But with Canescast, I'm Phil Van Pelt.
Hey guys, I really appreciate you. I hope we get down and get another episode out here in the next couple weeks, because I still feel like there's a lot to talk about even in the off season, because this is a good start. I think we've covered most of the major pieces, but I still think there's a lot to talk about as we head into the next season. So hopefully it won't be long, and we'll be seeing you guys back here for Canescast, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And if you wouldn't mind, tell your friends, like and subscribe, spread the word, so we can feel good about showing this to you guys and hopefully see more and more of you. Thanks again, guys. It's all about the you.
Always. See ya.